Thank you. Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. So, today's talk is about the benefits of growing green and whether sustainable eco friendly houses can become a mainstream choice. But before we start off today's talk, let's take a tour of Mr. Muthayal's house. How did you come up with the idea of building an eco friendly house?
We lived in a house which we owned, but we were in a joint family. And as the family grew, we were running out of space. Then we had to perforce build our own for the nuclear family. So what happened was at that time we decided that it has to be low impact on the earth because we are building new. And why building new has to be low impact because the materials and the methods that we have got now, so-called modern methods, they use a lot of steel and cement, which are polluting industries and energy guzzling industries. They say that 30 to 35% of world's pollution comes from construction industry. And we are mindlessly constructing, mindlessly using cement and the steel. So we said in our construction, we have to reduce both. So we started scouting for alternatives. That is how the idea was.
So, did you know anyone who had built an eco friendly house?
Yeah, one odd person, but then it had not impacted us that much until we decided to build ourselves. So once we opened our eyes to eco-friendly alternatives, we could see hundreds of examples and such buildings and such people, starting from Auroville to Laurie Baker's works, to Chitra Vishwanath here, to the work that Indian Institute of Science has done. So our eyes opened to all of these things. These things were there already, but we could open our eyes only at that point in time.
So, was your family in favor of your decision?
Yes, as a family, we carried everybody along. And my wife was very supportive in this. Annam is her name. She's a special educator. We visited a lot of places to assure ourselves that this will work. So seeing is believing, and she was convinced. And then we went ahead with that.
Tell us about the most challenging part of building an eco friendly house.
12, 13 years back when we actually started researching and planning and started to build, the resources available was meager. We had to hunt for everything. Gandhi had said, build a house with the materials which are found within a 5-mile radius of the place where you're going to build. But in 5-mile radius, you can't find anything except for plastic waste. That is there everywhere, strewn around. But construction materials, the city has grown so much, any city or town has grown so much that in 5-mile radius, you don't find it. So we had to redefine that, say 15-mile or 100-mile radius. And that is how we sourced the materials, chose materials, the methods, the workmen. So everything had to be based on that.
So, do you think the market for natural raw materials is better now?
Definitely. People are realizing that they are available in close quarters than, like earlier. See, for instance, in Bangalore, if I have to import marble from Rajasthan and build, that is atrocious. It may not even suit the microclimate here, the local climate here. But we're just enamored by the palaces of Rajasthan and then try to import that here. Whereas Rajasthan has so many beautiful courtyards, which are a part of any house, whether it's small or big, they have courtyards. And of course, Kerala has, Chettinad has, any rural town you go, village you go, the house will have a courtyard, whether it's open, whether they have vegetation or not. There is a central courtyard which is central to the house, and that is a multi-activity area, which we don't realize, but we get marble and then close everything and switch on the air conditioner. And that is the irony. So we moved away from that.
So when you're finding it difficult to get raw materials, there were other difficulties. Did you ever think of scrapping your plans?
No. We went around, found what we want, and at times when it was frustrating, we had to make do with what we could get. And that is the beauty of it. Like in a kitchen garden, you have to eat what you grow. You don't have a choice of choosing between beetroot and carrot because you're not growing that. You're growing bendi. So you cook that, you know. So that was the kind of attitude that we took.
You have avoided the use of hazardous building materials like cement and steel in your house. So can you tell us what kind of local and natural materials have you used?
Volume wise, the biggest component is bricks, and the bricks we decided that we will use compressed earth blocks, which does not require um, baking or firing, so that is hugely energy efficient. That is available in situ, that is on the site itself. We have to excavate for foundation, and we dug an open well. So the mud from that was used. Of course, we had to buy some mud, extra mud, but most of what was excavated was used. And the mud was mixed with quarry dust, which is not very expensive. It's a byproduct of gravel making. And we also used 5% cement, which is a combination of lime and cement. So these are compressed by hand, no motorized stuff. So we made the bricks in situ and cured it for 10 days with water, and that was hugely energy efficient. And these bricks are very uniform, so you don't need to plaster them, and they have a very rustic look. Like what you see behind me is the wall that is left unplastered. It is called exposed brickwork. And the speciality of these bricks is it can integrate back into the soil very quickly. If you see a baked brick, even from Harappan ages, 5,000 years back, what they have made, is still available as a brick. It doesn't integrate with the once it is done with. So there's a huge advantage here, and we will save a lot of construction debris this way. And we have used very little concrete and cement and steel.
Can you tell us more benefits of using these local materials? Like they keep the temperature.
Yeah, it keeps the indoor air quality at
Yes.
at the best, because these bricks breathe. They are not plastered or painted, so they breathe. What it means when they breathe. As an example, I can say that during rains or when the moisture is high in the air, this can absorb the moisture, and when the air is dry, it can emanate the moisture. It controls the microclimate along with the courtyard. Open courtyard is a great controller of microclimate and indoor air quality.
Also, do these materials save time and money in the construction?
Money to some extent, yes, because these materials are available locally or at least regionally, and they are not expensive.
Okay.
For instance, red oxide and vaulted ceilings, as you would see from the video. These are made brick by brick, so they are slow. Okay. So perforce the material is cheaper, but the labor is more expensive. It takes a bit more time.
So you have to train the labor to make such houses because they don't have previous experience.
Yeah, the whole set of about 10 to 12 boys who were masons and helpers stayed with us for all the 2.5 years that we built. It need not have taken that long, but we did a lot of crazy experiments. Each roof is different, each floor is different. We had to source a lot of used items, including doors and windows. So all these things took a lot of time, but we decided to retain them on a monthly salary so that they will learn these methods, and it will be useful for them when they go out also.
So one needs to have a good mason and a good team.
Willing to learn, that is all is required.
So unlike concrete houses, is it easy to maintain a house made of natural materials?
Yeah. So there are many inherent advantages of living naturally, because you avoid all those modern materials like PVC and paint and so many other things which emanate volatile organic compounds or outgas as they call it. Even plywood has a formaldehyde which will outgas for 20 years. And these things bring about these modern diseases called asthma and bronchitis and skin rashes, and it could be so many other things. I have not investigated that. But when you avoid these things, you live a much healthier life.
It's like living in nature.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, people have all kind of doubts like, can these houses sustain nature's fury?
Definitely, yes. A friend of mine, Panduranga,
Okay.
he's from Mangalore, where it rains about 3,000 to 3,500 millimeters in a year. And that too during the southwest monsoon, which is banned between June and September.
Okay.
And it's very harsh. Coastal area. They have storms. And in spite of all that, these bricks have withstood all these storms for the last 10 years. He liked our house very much. As a family, they visited us and stayed with us. And they wanted to do that. I did forewarn him about the harsh monsoon that they will have. But he said that I can always plaster it from outside at a later date if it is required. But for 10 years, he has not done that. So that's a test of what this can withstand.
So if I'm correct, you have zero energy bills. Your house has been off the grid for the past 12 years, and all your electronic gadgets run on solar power. This is incredible. Please tell us more about this.
Um, we have a 2.2 kilowatt solar PV system on the rooftop, and that has served us well for the last 12 years. Although it was difficult for us in the initial years to come to terms with. We have to use within what we produce on the rooftop. But after a few years, we got used to it. And also with a little bit of advancement in technology, we replaced key components like the charge controller and things like that. And that helped us, be more efficient with the power production. On the appliances side, we also upgraded from our old, what we brought in from our old house to, for instance, an LED TV, which consumes much less than a smaller LED TV which we had previously. We upgraded our refrigerator from 165 liters to 300 liters, but it consumes much less power with the inverter technology. The same was with washing machine. Same is with the desktop. We replaced the desktop when it came to that stage with a laptop, which is much more power efficient. So that's how we manage, and we are not short of any convenience. We have everything, and everything is used judiciously and in a manner that all of us can use everything.
So does one have to shift his lifestyle to accommodate to this kind of house?
The process of building this house was about choices that we have to make in terms of design, in terms of materials, in terms of methods, how we do it. So that gave us a lot of inspiration for the lifestyle that we are going to take when living in this house. So that came in sort of automatically. If I had outsourced the whole thing to somebody and then just moved in, I may not have had this kind of insight into alternate living. The house influenced us to become or adopt a better lifestyle.
Your household
Yeah.
uses municipal water for 6 months, and for the rest of the year, the water consumption is through the harvested water. So, tell us about the water harvesting in your house.
From the pictures or the video, you would see most of the sloping roof converging into the open courtyard.
Right.
So the rainwater is collected here and then channelized through a filter, a fine mesh filter, into the sump. The sump is about 18,000 liters, and the overflow from the sump is let into the open well to recharge. We have open well, and that did not yield water at that time, so we had to get supply from the municipal authorities. If the well were to have yielded, we wouldn't have taken that. Now, between rainwater well and the municipal connection, we are doing well and trying to shift our dependence on rainwater.
Also, how do you treat gray and black water?
Grey water is in two parts. One is the bath water from the toilets. The bathrooms are channelized into the western part of the house where the fruiting trees are there. And they are let into pits which are interconnected along 100 feet in length. About six pits are there. And they are connected by PVC pipes at the bottom of the pits. These pits are typically 4 to 5 feet in depth, and that means the water is distributed among all the pits through the pipes, and that irrigates the fruiting trees. The second part is the kitchen and the utility. The kitchen sink and then the utility, the washing machine and things like that. This water is directed into the plants, to the kitchen garden plants, whether it's a vegetable bed or banana plants or papaya, whatever. And this is channelized through hose, flexible hose. Why flexible? Because we can shift it to different patches or different plants. If we leave this water at one place, it stagnates and starts to putrefy and stink. So we have to shift it every few days to different patches, and we don't treat this water straight away. It goes into the garden. This is as far as grey water is concerned. Then we come to black water. We have a biodigester, which is a DRDO design licensed to commercial manufacturers and suppliers. So we got one installed. It was retrofitted. So it's not seen outside. It is buried in the ground. And all the water that we flush gets into that with the night soil. And then it is treated through bacteria. And the treated water is let into the garden. That is about 80 to 100 liters in a day. And that's very insignificant, but it is significant in terms of the environment. Although the community I live in has a sewage treatment plant, we don't let wastewater out at all. All waste is used in the house except for plastic and such reprocessable waste, which is given outside.
There are many people who dream of building an eco-friendly house, but are held back because of the huge cost. So, my big question is, how affordable is green construction?
The cost of construction of such houses, eco-friendly houses, typically the same or a little less than a regular construction. The difference, as I told you earlier, is the choice of materials are so earthly and so available. They're not expensive at all. Whereas the labor of putting together this house is a little more than normal. So that kind of compensates. If you build a contemporary house and you have to buy contemporary material, the difference is between for flooring you would choose vitrified tiles, and for eco-friendly thing it would be red oxide or some terracotta tiles or something like that, which is essentially the cost is much lower.
So, what advice would you give to someone who wants to build a house like yours?
Um, would say read about such alternate choices, visit alternate constructions, talk to people who have lived in these kind of houses. So firsthand, you can make a considered choice, and you would be convinced. Otherwise, the apprehensions will always be there. Will this withstand nature's fury? Will this be maintenance free, or at least low maintenance? So there are so many misgivings and apprehensions that one would have. The best is to eliminate this by visiting and talking to people who have already done it.
Okay. So, what would you go back and change if you could? Because you built the house almost like 13, 14 years ago.
Yeah, there are a few things. Maybe the rainwater unit, the sump could have been bigger. And my well, I could have gone deeper, but for the fact that we hit rock and then we had started constructing, I didn't want to blast the rock. So there are a few things like that which I would have changed.
You've inspired so many people by building a house which is closer to ground, doesn't harm the environment, uses natural material. So, do you think even a single greenhouse is a big step towards sustainability because it creates so much of eco awareness?
Definitely, yes. The choice that we make influences the immediate circle of influence. That is our friends and relatives, and the community, the neighbors. As an example, I would say that there are, of course, a lot of people who come to see, including school children, architecture students, and all that. But the biggest change, I would say, the community that I live in has adopted so many things in line with what we have done. For instance, they recharge every drop of rainwater. There are rainwater recharge pits of 25 feet in depth all over the layout. The layout itself is about 70 acres in campus, and every drop of water is recharged into the ground. So much so that when people dig for foundation here, anywhere in this colony, they get water. They have to pump out the water to resume construction. So like that, we have a sewage treatment plant which reprocesses about 150,000 liters of water a day, and that is resupplied to the houses for secondary purposes. It could be for washing cars or the gardens or many other purposes. Even we have a lot of parks here and the clubhouse. We use this reprocessed water throughout.
We have seen the pictures of your kitchen garden. So, what all grows there?
We grow most of the seasonal vegetables. Bangalore, we are blessed with weather and climate that things grow through the year, and we make use of that. We grow a lot of greens and vegetables, most of what we consume, and we have 12 fruiting trees like the butterfruit and the govas and amla and things like that, and ramphal. So we have sufficient fruits also through the year.
It was great talking to you, Mr. Mathaya. Thank you for agreeing to be interviewed.
Thank you very much. You too.
Thank you. Lovely talking to you, sir.